district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense? Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up? Back by popular demand. The GOATs are back. Appreciate you guys joining us. We are excited to be back in the district for you guys, talking high stakes fantasy football. I've got my boy Dan Williamson. You know him as at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end, on the X Machine, from the Player Profiler. My co-host of the GOAT District for very long time. I don't know how many years, Dan. How many years is that? 6, 7, 8, something like that?
I don't know. Yeah, gotta be at least 5 or 6.
I'm jacked up for this one, man. I hope you guys are. We got a big show tonight. Dan Williamson, back from a vacay. We're rested, Dan. We're hungry. We did a live draft the other day together. And then we've got the hairy snowman. People see the hairy snowman in the chats, watching, taking in the content. We see him in the high stake streets. It's like a tongue twister. Rob, welcome to the district, brother.
Thank you. So honored to be here, man. So excited. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I've just been so excited since you told me that you were even thinking about putting this back together. I'm so used to being out in the comments and just sitting there and absorbing. Going to be a little different out here, but it's nice to kind of talk for a little bit. So it's no thinking.
No, we're excited to get you on, man. I know you were a big fan of the district, and you and I started drafting teams together and talking fantasy behind the scenes on the regular, just like Dan and I do. And I just kept telling Dan, like, this guy's a little sharper than he thinks, I think. So let's get him on. You and I drafted a $2,200 buy-in main event, and you were actually supposed to sign us up for a slow draft. I come back from vacation, and like 4 hours before the draft is supposed to start, I realized, dude, I think this is a live. I think it's a live draft. So I emailed, oh man, what's his name at FFPC? Dave.
Dave?
No, man. Dave. I emailed Dave, and I'm like, is this a live or is this a slow? Because I think my co-owner here thinks that it's going to be a slow draft. So we had to kind of, clear all the plans for Saturday night. But this room was loaded. For those who don't know, the FFPC is myffpc.com. If you're not already on the site, make sure you guys use the code DRBaller to get yourself $25 off your first deposit. But they have the biggest tournament on the planet when it comes to fantasy football. $2,200 buy-in, $6.5 million, I believe, in prize money. It's over $6 million anyways now. And we're talking $1 million for first place. And it's a blast. And we've been drafting since January, best ball. We started sneaking in some big gorillas, some 125 buy-in BBTs, but this was really our first main of the offseason. And I respect Dan so much. He's not in the actual draft, but he's gonna give us he's one of the sharpest guys. You guys know that if you follow the district or if you follow Dan on the Player Profiler. Oh, I just realized the comments here. Where am I going to put these comments? I'll figure that out as we go. Sean, appreciate you joining. Guys in the chat, we appreciate you guys joining us today for this special episode. What we're going to do is I actually recorded the board as it unfolded. So we're going to be letting it play. I sped it up a bit so it doesn't actually take the 2 hours. But for those who don't know, again, it's a 60-second clock. We're not going to feel that today. But, I mean, I started saying there's some seriously sharp guys in this draft. And we pulled what, Rob? The 3 spot for this one. After getting the 7, 8, 9 for about 20 drafts in a row, we finally got to the front of the draft board. We pulled the 3 spot, and then right next to us, a couple of the biggest drafters out there, in Dave Hubbard and Austin Martin. But it was a fun one. I think, considering kind of we were expecting a slow draft to kind of get, prepare ourselves and strategize on the go. I think we did pretty all right, considering, this was kind of last minute live. Rob, what do you think of the outcome as I get this set up for us?
Well, the outcome, I mean, I think worked out. I thought it was funny. My fault totally about the slow draft and it being a fast draft. Like, this was my maiden voyage with a Maine. I've been doing the gorillas, all the other stuff. So I hadn't, I wasn't sure. I thought I was setting it up. So it was panic. When we found out I had 4 hours to get done, I mean, all of a sudden I was like, game time. Fell back. I've been doing this for a while. I mean, I remember when, these games were a lot different. I used to do things differently when things were different, when you used to have the live drafts, a lot more live drafts. My hat keeps going the wrong way. Okay. But, I ended up with putting a list together, getting ready for each round, and I thought that kind of worked out for us. But it was kind of really boom, boom, boom last minute, and working with a lot of things that used to work, and I think it kind of worked out for this draft.
I started giggling there when you were talking about your hat, because I was telling Dan how when we were testing out the audio and stuff, you were saying you wanted the camera flipped. But Dan explained to me that the reason it's like that, it's so that the audience can read anything on the camera behind you, right? So like his GOAT district, or
yep.
I've been doing this for almost a decade, and I couldn't have told you that. But that's why we have Dan, man. That's why we have Dan. He's the sharp one in the room for sure. But this was a blast. Dan, have you done any mains? You usually do. You and I actually had a really good roster last year where we won our division or our league in the main event, and then we ended up winning ourselves an entry into this year's. So we'll be drafting that later in the offseason. But have you done any other main events? And what's your situation, I guess, with the big gorillas while we're talking kind of bigger buy-in tournaments?
Yeah, so I've got 3 gorillas under my belt. I've got 2 more underway. Have not done any mains yet. That's coming soon, though. I'm going to be heading out for another trip in about 3 weeks, a little bit less than 3 weeks. So I want to get probably a slow main done before I head out on that trip, just to get one in the books and get things started there. But the gorillas have been I've been focused on those just to kind of get in on that early rampage thing. It's kind of like a tournament within a tournament. So when there's a little bit extra available to be won, you don't have to pay any more to enter. Why not?
Yeah, you've been traveling a lot, which is nice, living that retired life. But that's what the slow drafts are for, Dan. You get to register before you leave, and then kind of your wife's asking you, "I thought you were not going to do any fantasy." You're like, "Well, I still got drafts."
No. There was never any promises of that.
No off season. There's never an off season, man. Let's face it. That's why we love fantasy. It's all year round. Whether they're on the field or off the field. So we're going to get to the draft. We're going to get to the board. As I said, we're going to have it playing on the screen for you guys as it unfolds. Before we do that, let's just get to a word from our favorite site and a big supporter of the channel, the FFPC.
This is the main event!
Main event draft
We're drafting
season.
a main event team on FFPC $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
All right, boys, welcome back. Like I said, if you're not in the FFPC, they're starting at $5 buy-in best balls all the way to the main event, which is a $2,200 best ball. Right now, they've got the $350 buy-in Big Gorilla, which is a ton of fun. If you can't get yourself in the main, you can ladder in, guys. You can start off at the $5 buy-ins, win yourself into the $35 buy-in, gets yourself into the $125 buy-ins and the $350 buy-ins if you win those leagues, and then you work your way up and you build that bankroll if you're not ready to. Best site on the planet. They have every type of fantasy possible, every format when it comes to best ball, redraft, dynasty. They've got what, Dan, like over 2,000 leagues or something that have never folded in dynasty.
Yes, it's somewhere. It's just a staggering number. It's an almost unbelievable number, but yet every year they add a few more leagues, and so you can still get out there and do a maiden draft if you want, or you can you can kind of go through and find some really good values on teams. Every year I usually take on one or two more orphans. And it's just ridiculous the amount of value you can get on some of these. Some of these are teams that have, were in the playoffs and won money the previous year, and they're available for next to nothing. So, that's a little bit earlier in the year. Right now it's just basically all those are gone, but they are very worth it when you get into like January, February, March. Dive in there, get some of those.
Totally. Andrew Schellenberg, shout out to Andrew, was a GOAT District member before we hung it up. This is the reboot. If you're tuning in for the first time, GOAT District ran for about 8 years, I believe. Started off as a little podcast, and then we got the YouTube channel going. Dan joined the crew, joined me as a co-host, and we just, the rest is history. We were just bringing in the best in the high stakes world, and that's what we're back to do, guys, is get the greatest minds out there in here for you, picking their brains any way they can. Dan, we've got MP60 from Munich. He left you a message actually in the draft that you and I did, saying that next time you're back in Europe, in Germany, to go give him a visit, give him a call.
We'll definitely do that. Yeah, when Germany's definitely on the list. Haven't gotten there. Well, I guess I was in like 8th or 9th grade last time I was there. So that was maybe a couple of years ago.
They had planes, Dan, back then. No, I'm just kidding.
No, dude, we rode boats. It was a long way over.
They're back, baby. They're back. The new software has a whole sound effects section, so I'm gonna have fun with that for sure. All right. So we see it on the board, Rob. Before this thing even started, I think the three of us, like we're all like hardcore JJ fans. I remember Dan, I think, was it you that started the Justin Jefferson 101 in a January draft before he was actually, I think, was it his rookie season or the next season that you?
No, it was the next season.
Okay.
Because I didn't know where he was going to go or anything like that. I was actually kind of, just sort of into him his rookie year. Not as into him as I ended up getting. But after you saw what he did as a rookie, I was basically, Jefferson 101. I was, maybe a year early on that, but also he had a amazing sophomore campaign, so it worked out well for me.
So Rob, you pretty much had, as soon as we got the 3 spot, you pretty much had your mind set on JJ. I mean, I don't need to be convinced too much on JJ. Dan just talked about how much he loved JJ coming in. For those who don't know, Dan's in Minnesota, Vikings fan, so he had his ear to the ground and his fandom stuff going for him, and it paid off. But I think, Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact that JJ's been a top 5 receiver every year except for his rookie year when he was, the wide receiver 9 when you're talking about fantasy points per game, it's kind of like that warm blankie, when you're a kid, when you draft JJ in the first round, because you're probably going to get what you paid for with his track record. Is that why that's where you wanted to go in the first round? Why avoid some of these top-end running backs? You're on mute, brother. You're on mute. We can't hear you. We don't hear. We're not hearing you. Sorry, we'll cut him some slack. It's his first time on.
That's right.
Cut him some slack. It's not a Goat District show unless we have some kind of audio issue.
Oh, especially for first times.
Especially for first timers.
That's the way it goes. Yeah. So, and Jefferson's a good pick here, just because of the fact that you can, you're not going to lose money picking Justin Jefferson, basically anywhere in the first round. So, totally defensible pick there. You're going to see a lot of people taking Barkley there. You're going to see a lot of people taking Bowers there. You might see some other picks, but basically it's, you might see Gibbs in there even, but it's, Jefferson's going to be a top 6 pick no matter what. So it doesn't really matter exactly where you get him. If that's a guy you want to lead off your draft, then you take him where you got to.
Shout out to the chat right now, talking 90s Blue Jays. I mean, Toronto boy here, so I could talk 90s Blue Jays all day. I appreciate Andrew and Sean going back and forth talking about the Blue Jays, which is awesome. I don't know if we have Rob back, but let me ask you quickly, Rob, you back or? We don't hear you, brother. You might have to leave and come back. My question to you, Dan. Barkley. Yes. Barkley was league-winning machine last year. Does he scare you this year? He was going he kind of goes as the 2. Let me check my quick, the gorilla right now. He's going in the 4 spot. Oh, sorry. Let me just get Rob in here.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but I hear myself in an echo though.
You hear an echo in the back?
Yeah. I don't know if the audience hears it, but I've got an echo of myself anyways.
All right. I'm sorry.
No problem, man. No problem.
Good headphones isn't.
Yeah. Take your time. Dan. I might have to mute you though. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. Barkley, does he scare you this year? That was kind of the question. At his cost, do you like that he's slipping down boards a bit, or is he someone you're avoiding or targeting?
Actually, I was kind of avoiding him a little bit without really doing the research, and just because I saw he had basically 100 carries throughout the postseason, added on to the 300 and whatever he had. He had basically about the 6th most carries of all time in the NFL. And I was like, man, the record of these guys who've, had the top 10 most carries in the NFL for a particular season, it can't be good the season afterwards. But you know what? When I actually dove in and did the research, there were a couple guys who got hurt, but and almost none of them did exactly as well as they did the previous season, just because it's really tough to follow up one career year with another one. But also, there were several instances where they did just fine. They did almost as well or as well. So I don't really have that much concern with Barkley, not as much as I used to. So I'm fine taking him wherever he's falling to. I just took him at the 3 hole in. I started off I guess it was one of the regular best ball tournament drafts. So I got him at the 3 there, and I felt totally good about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those but that's actually very interesting what you say about diving into that, because you would think that the fall off is pretty steep after the amount of carries he got and the production he gave. But I mean, that offense, I don't see them necessarily fresh off of a Super Bowl. I mean, I don't see them really taking a step back. There's no reason to. They've got a pretty experienced quarterback. They've got guys like AJ Brown, and Barkley comes in. He's not necessarily he's a vet now. You know what I mean? It's a second team. He's out there to just make everyone in the league regret ever saying anything bad about him, especially the New York Giants management right now. Shout out to Best Ball on Call. Appreciate you joining us, guys. Make sure you smash that like button, smash the subscribe button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We got live drafts, on the regular. We've got GOAT District, high stakes fantasy football shows coming at your face at least once a week with some of the sharpest minds in the game. Rob, do we have you back?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
There we go. As clear as day.
All right.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And hi, Tika. I see you. I see you out there.
All right, so let's just look down the board right now because we're pretty much back to our pick in the second. Let's just, staying in the first round. Is there anything that stands out? I mean, to me, I know we were commenting with McBride. Rob was a guy that went earlier than he normally does. He usually goes, if not in the 12 spot, he's like in the early second is kind of where I usually see him go. But you know what? Now I'm looking at the Big Gorilla ADP. It seems like he's just moving up more and more, Dan. Is that surprise you, or is he someone that's risen in your personal rankings? Why do you think that is, that he's moving up, kind of from mid to late second to now like end of the first?
Yeah, so when at the end of, in those last three spots or so, it's hard to get a shot at a good tight end at a price that I like until you start getting later. I mean, so McBride is kind of your one shot at getting that elite tight end, unless you're going to really, really reach on Kittle, because Kittle and Bowers are both going more towards the front end of the draft. And then McBride, in Kittle's case, it's really the back end of the second round, or if you're really lucky, it can be like what just happened here, you can get him at the 301, but he's not going back much further than that. So I think McBride, and he only had 2 touchdowns last year. Just ridiculous. So
it's crazy.
Yeah. And that's not likely to continue with as many receptions as he had. We should have expected about 7 or 8 touchdowns out of McBride. So, you add on those touchdowns, and he might be as good a pick as Bowers. So he kind of just gives you access to that elite tight end. So I don't hate that at all. The one that I find the most interesting that's kind of a tell on how you feel is where people are taking Christian McCaffrey, because he's starting to really rise into the first round now too. This drafter here got him at the 201. I mean, just as easily could have been the 112, but McCaffrey is starting to edge up into the 9, 10, 11, 12 range, and I think it's possible he could even edge up a couple more picks before it's all said and done. But he's a guy where you gotta, it's a big chance that you're taking because of the injury history that he's had. But man, oh man, if he gets his normal workload and he doesn't get hurt, that's a league winner in the back half right there.
Do you think he ends up in that first tier of running backs, like with the Bijans, the Gibbs, the Barkley? I feel like, people have been drafting since January, just kind of, for me anyways, I'm just kind of like making sure my ownership on all three of those guys is pretty even. That's kind of how I'm playing it with regards to who I want to take when I have the opportunity. But do you think McCaffrey makes it to that top tier, or do you think he's still going to remain in the back end of the first, kind of that GNT, A-Chain, Irving, Taylor kind of tier?
Yeah, I think he's definitely, especially on a per game basis, any game that McCaffrey's playing, I would put him right up against any other running back in fantasy football. The question is how lucky do you feel? Do you feel like he's going to play 15 plus games, or do you feel like he's going to play 7 games or 3 games or whatever? If you feel like it's going to be 7 or 3, you don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole. But if you feel like he's going to get in, 14 plus games, absolutely, he's a great value where he's going right now, and he gives you access to the elite running back. Otherwise it's hard to, there's probably going to be somebody else, but it's hard to guess who before the season starts.
Dan, I don't know if you knew this, but the most McBride's ever had touchdown-wise in a season, do you know what that number is? 3? Yes, sir. You've got Player Profiler open in front of you. That's okay.
No,
That's okay.
Actually, I don't. That was a semi-wild guess, but
nice.
Also, I've looked into him fairly extensively over time. So, but let's talk about what you guys did. You came back with in the second round with Derrick Henry, and then a round with T. Higgins. So just wanted to hear you guys talk about what the thought process was.
Yeah, just real quick. CMC, Arian Foster. Remember Arian Foster? He'd come in for 3 games. He'd put up 20 points. I mean, that's CMC now at this point in his career. I mean, who cares if he plays 7, 9 games? You know what you're getting when you get him. I mean, it's just where you draft him. I don't want to have to draft him in the first round, but I mean, still, at some point, everybody's going to lose faith if he keeps getting injured. He'll get in that point, but every game, 20 points. At some point, he'll be a value. Maybe it was this year when he was drafting early on. So what we did here, that was an inflection point. T. Higgins or Jackson Smith in the Jigba. We went through a discussion.
Whoa, Rob, you can't ignore Sean. Come on, don't be rude to our audience.
I'm sorry.
The way Sean phrases that comment at the bottom of the screen, and again, shout out to the chat. You guys are crushing it. Is I couldn't believe, and I think Rob, we felt the same way. We were just like, this is a smash right now, Henry at the 210, because if you look at most ADPs right now, he's going, so he makes it at kind of like the 205, and this is looking at the last 30 days of the main event. But if I go to the last 3 days in the big gorilla, he's like at the 2-3, like just at the turn, basically after McCaffrey. It's either him or A-Chain that kind of flip-flop normally at the beginning in the first half of the second round. The fact that we got him at 210, Rob, was just a gift, and it was like a no-brainer for us.
Yeah. And I want to say, when we came into this, JD, he was on my short list of targets. And the first thing you said to me, he's not going to make it to us. But I had seen that in just that past week or so, he had fallen back and a lot of receivers had pushed up. So I put him on the list of a possibility that he could be there, and it just worked out. I mean, that was just crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to take those gifts. And you know what? Like the first 3-4 rounds, let's face it, you're nitpicking with a lot of these guys. Obviously, there's guys you prefer over others, but you're pretty much nitpicking when you're looking at these top 2 or 3 rounds, especially. So when a gift comes to you like that, you take it. You can build. You could tell yourself, I'm going to. And I say this to you, Rob, often. Like I don't think builds are necessarily a style. I think they're more like a tool. Like you should be able to build a roster no matter what the start of your draft is. I always say, in best ball, I could just autopilot or auto draft, whatever, the first 3 rounds, 4 rounds. I'll always make a competitive team out of it just because, you pretty much, if you know how to build rosters, you know how to build different styles. So, I think people get too into the like, oh, I'm a 0 RB guy, I'm a hero RB guy. Yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of have all those in my artillery, and I just see those as different tools when you're in a draft, just to be more fluid and not necessarily miss something, because some guys come in, they're like, oh, I'm drafting receivers the first 3-4 rounds every time, and then they'll miss a value like that, and I think that's a big mistake in drafts. All right, Rob, you want to talk about T. Higgins? This was our first, what we call the inflection points. Rob and I had I think we had three or four inflection points, and the crazy thing is all 3 or 4 of those situations went to literally the last second. Like we clicked the draft button when there was like 1 second left. And every time the other player that we didn't draft that we talked about, Hubbard and Austin drafted him literally right after. We're like, well, at least we had the right, options that we were contemplating, but it was just frustrating because you'd miss on it, and then you see them get it and you're like, oh man, maybe we should have taken that guy. Anyways, Rob, T. Higgins. The Wi-Fi goblins are
the
attacking you.
Goblins have gobbled.
Yes.
Yeah. So Higgins is he's kind of a hard cat for me to evaluate, because the thing is, he's so good on a per game basis, but he's also had some problems staying healthy. His upside is capped by Jamar Chase, but again, man, almost every game he plays, he's a threat to put up, and sometimes 30. So that's something you got to respect. I don't mind the pick at all there, and I think structurally getting a wide receiver there made a lot of sense for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, wide receiver 5 last year, fantasy points per game. He just signed that huge contract. All 3 of those guys are locked up right now in Cincinnati. They know each other really well. I'm getting that white noise, Rob, that same one when you had your, I don't know if it's your headset or, do you hear that, Dan? There's like I'm getting an echo and a white noise right now in my ear.
Yeah, now I'm getting the echo. So
all right, I muted you, Rob. FYI. So yeah, I just think Cincinnati, not the best defense, tough, high scoring division. I just think this team's gonna be chucking the ball all day. And for me, as long as T. Higgins can stay healthy, because that's really the only thing that I would have. He's one of my favorite receivers in the league. The only thing I would say is it's a little stressful when you own him in fantasy, because often it's like, what is it, questionable, and then like you don't really know until game time if he's going to play or not. But I feel like now that he's not dealing with like the franchise tag and contract talk, and I don't know, Dan, do you think that maybe falls in owner's favor now that he's maybe a little more secure in Cincinnati with that new contract?
Yeah, I don't think the contract issue is going to affect him either way at this point. He's just going to go out there and play. He's got to be happy he got paid. So, everything should be rosy. And, as you said, the Cincinnati defense looks primed to suck again this year. So, if there's going to be, last year Cincinnati was just a carnival of fantasy points because the defense was terrible. So it put pressure on the offense to keep scoring. And I think we're going to probably see the same thing this year, because I don't really see anything about that defense that looks any better. And if Trey Hendrickson doesn't get signed, it could potentially be even worse.
Totally. Could be worse.
Yep. And one thing that's kind of fun about these FFPC drafts right now is, you see that we went from Kittle at the 301 all the way to Laporta at the 505. So you've got basically a 2+ round gap here without any tight ends being taken, which is in my history of the FFPC, that's kind of a rare deal that you see such a big gap in the early rounds for tight ends. Usually somebody is pushing someone up into the 3rd, 4th round, whatever. So I find it kind of interesting that Laporta and Hockenson are going so late. How do you feel about that, JD? Are you into Laporta or Hockenson at cost?
So I like the top 3 guys, and then I'm pretty much waiting until, like, I really like waiting at tight end this year. I did a big gorilla. They had the early rampage on Sunday night for like a Father's Day special. The girls were like, you want to draft, go ahead, no problem. We'll entertain ourselves. And I waited till, I want to say, the 11th or 12th round for a tight end. And I was never panicked. I just feel the depth that is there, especially with like the shiny new toys, the rookies, of course. But then, Dan, I don't know about you, but even like a guy like Dallas Goedert, to me is like in, we're talking the 11th round in tight end premium. This guy was crushing in the playoffs when he came back from injury. And I just think that you don't need to panic necessarily. I don't know how you feel about those guys that are kind of like, like Laporta, Hockenson, obviously they've shown us huge upside. They're definitely in good offenses, good offensive minded, coaches. But how do you feel about like the next kind, like the Kelsey, the Ingram, Njoku, Andrews, Jonnu? I would say is kind of like that next tier. Are those guys you're drafting, or are you kind of doing, like it's not that I'm avoiding them completely, because I love Njoku. Big fan of Njoku. Obviously, Andrews and Kelsey's have shown us what they can do. Jonnu coming off of a huge, kind of an isolated, I guess, up season is not as appealing to me necessarily. I'm not completely fading him, but I'd rather jump to like a Tucker Kraft or, get some of that rookie action.
Right, exactly. And, I guess where I'm at on these guys is I don't really care for Laporta where he's going because I think there's going to be a lot of hit and miss with him. With Jameson Williams coming on and becoming a more important part of the offense, I think that makes it a little bit tougher to Laporta because now, you kind of run into, cliche alert, as the Podfather would say, but, too many mouths to feed there in Detroit. And, is the offense going to be as good as it was without Ben Johnson there? I do think that, Dane Campbell has a lot to do with how that team runs and how they perform and everything else. But, Ben Johnson, he's also a little bit of a mad scientist himself. And I think he's really found ways to get that offense running at even better efficiency than what it would have otherwise. So I think he's a plus offensive coordinator. I think losing him is going to hurt the Lions a little bit. But Hockenson, I think, is probably actually a pretty good deal at this point, especially with Addison probably, facing
that's right,
a potential suspension. And, just the fact that we got a new quarterback in Minnesota, leaning on the tight end, leaning on a Hockenson, he's kind of the easy button there. So I think there's I have less Hockenson than I would like to, but all these middle round tight ends, and you were talking about on through Njoku and all those guys. I normally shy away from tight ends in that range, just because I find that a lot of them they had one good season and then everybody's pushing them up because they think the same thing's going to happen. But what we have in the middle rounds now is we've got tight ends who really have a history of performing. We've got Travis Kelce, we got Evan Ingram, we got Hockenson, we got Njoku, we've got basically Mark Andrews. These guys all have histories of performing. And so, it doesn't scare me to get in there and draft those guys. It just kind of comes down to tight end. I take them when I don't see a clear value anywhere else. If I'm not seeing a wide receiver, running back I really love, I'm going to go ahead and take a tight end there.
I think we're kind of in a nice sweet spot right now with the tight end position because we have like a nice rookie class this year with regards to tight ends, like significant rookies. You've got some in the last couple of years that have trickled in. It more like kind of that, you've got the top end, the Bowers, the Laporta guys who crush in their rookie seasons. And then you've got kind of guys that you find later in the draft. But I feel like it's kind of the changing of the guard, but we're not there yet with regards to guys like Kelce, Andrews, because it is a position that plays, well into the 30s. You see Kittle right now, in a top 2 pick in tight end premium. And he's at 31 now or something like that. Or am I way off on that?
I think he's 30, but
that's not that bad. Okay, I wasn't that off.
Yeah,
but I just mean like it's not like a bunch of guys or I feel like you can literally, like I'm looking right now, Cole Kmet in the 19th round is just ridiculous. Like that's just the fact that especially with Loveland injured, that offense. We talk about Detroit with the new with Ben Johnson leaving now in Chicago. Who knows how these guys are going to get used now with a new head coach. And like you said, a mad scientist type of guy who's going to see all these pieces. We have no idea what he's going to come up with, right? We don't necessarily know. So it gives you the opportunity to just pick off some of these guys as you go down the draft board at tight end and in these crazy offenses like Chicago. I just find like it opens up the game for me. And there's not necessarily like that avoid gap that we normally see, or range, with regards to rounds. I just feel like there's so many different ways to build the tight end position that if you miss on one of those top guys, or maybe the next tier, you're never really in a panic or in a tough spot when it comes to building your tight end room in these drafts. Rob, do we have you back? Oh, sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh my God. Oh my God,
dude!
That was so frustrating.
Are you new here?
I feel for you. I've been there. Oh man.
Oh man, we all have. Don't worry about it.
It's like
you're early. It's 7th round. You're good. Don't worry about it.
Oh God. I mean, I was like busting out. You're like CMC. I want to talk about Arian Foster. You're talking about Justin Jefferson, and my little sweet spot, I'm talking about Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin, and you don't hear me. I'm just going, oh, no. Anyways.
All
right,
right.
so
Well, let's.
You talked all about DeVonta Smith and the Travis Hunter inflection point, did you?
Actually, no, we haven't.
no, not
So,
yet, not yet.
Yep. So go ahead, Rob. The floor is yours.
Well, I mean, it was. We were definitely looking at ceiling with Travis Hunter. I kind of came in. He's a hot name right now in that round. DeVonta Smith is the safe, coming off of a kind of a down year. You kind of expect a bounce back year. They ran a bunch in Philly last year. Figure they're probably going to pass a little more this year as teams adjust to what they did last year. He's just seemed like a good play. Honestly, that was JD. JD was first gut instinct was DeVonta Smith, and I was kind of like in Travis Hunter. We had a discussion there, but I also know from experience when go with JD's first instinct when he feels like he knows. You just
Yeah,
so that was the whole discussion right there. JD, you got more?
I mean, it's not necessarily that I didn't like Hunter. He was also an option for me there. We were just kind of looking at our build and what we had done so far, just thinking like as the wide receiver 3, like if it was and I was gonna ask Dan, but I don't want to necessarily hang on every pick here, but I am curious to know what Dan thinks about the Kamara pick, because like personally, if I was drafting, I probably would have went Tet there just to kind of keep building that receiver room. And Rob loves himself some Kamara. Let's face it. He loves. There's certain players Rob really loves.
Yeah, and I get why. Having two older running backs like that, Henry and Kamara. There is some extra risk by doing that. Definitely not saying it can't work out, because it certainly can. And for most of last year, it would have just fine. I would probably, given that, I would probably have gone Tut myself there. I'd have probably been hoping that Chuba then would swing around to me in the next round, because that would be really sweet. Or I probably would have reached a little bit on TreVeyon at that point. I think he's a running back that's already going too late. I think. I don't know if he's going to end up going any higher in drafts, but I think when the season is over, we're going to look at TreVeyon and say that was a value.
For those who don't know, Dan has not seen this draft board, and we have not discussed this with him. But Dan, you literally just said what I said to Rob when we were on the clock in this spot. I'm not making this shit up. Like the same players, TreVeyon Henderson, Tet, Hubbard on the way back. And he just, again, the nice thing about co-owning is you have your own teams, you have the teams that you co-own, and then you have, teams that you co-own with different people. So you don't always have to win every argument and get every player you want. That's kind of the nice thing of being a co-owner, is you'll draft guys that you might not necessarily or do builds. But then my brain went exactly the way yours did. I was like, we're grabbing Tet, we're getting Hubbard on the way back, and we're getting, we get a nice little stack going there. But, look, let's face it, Kamara's a beast, right? Like when he's on and you've got, what's his name out there now in head coaching with the Saints. Oh, man, blanking.
The new coach in New Orleans. And what's he saying?
Kellen Moore.
What's he saying about Kamara, guys? What's he saying about Kamara? He's saying he's going to design the offense around him. He's and he's a little bit like CMC in a lot of ways. I understand that there's a good chance he's going to miss a few games, but when he plays, I know I've got a good floor, 15, 16 points in a good game. He can still put up 30 points, maybe more, and getting that out of the running back too. That's great. And this isn't going to be a great team. You got a young quarterback. They're going to probably have to throw somewhere quickly, and so someone's going to have to get open quickly. I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of Kamara, maybe some Neal, some Olave. Repetitively short yardage kind of stuff. Try to get things moving, get things open. But I mean, Yeah, for a second running back, I just thought that was so solid in the fourth round. I was hoping for Kenneth Walker there, to be honest, and I really wanted R.J. Harvey, but he went early in this draft. So
Yeah, I'm curious how you guys feel about Harvey with the Dobbins signing. Does that push him down for you at all, or are you guys still high on Harvey?
I mean, I think it's definitely good for your Dobbins bags, Dan. You and I think, you drafted Dobbins. You took him right for us at one point in that. Was it a BBT that we did, or?
Yeah, it was a BBT.
Yeah, we ended up magically like with a Denver stack, and then we also drafted J.K. Dobbins, and then the next day the news came out. But yeah, I mean, look. I always think to myself, because people are so like, you got to be, you're either team RJ Harvey or your team, he's not necessarily going to pop in his first year, and Dobbins is going to be like, we got to remember running backs. The nice thing with running backs is you usually know who's starting. I mean, yeah, they get injured, whatever that game might be, depending on when they get hurt, but usually, when a running back is helping you in your lineup. So you know that he's going to be starting a game. We'll know when Harvey comes in and takes that job, but he's like, is he going to necessarily on day one be, a workhorse for Peyton in Denver? Probably not. Like, he's probably going to have to prove himself. He still has to prove himself. I mean, the upside is there. They took him at a point in the rookie draft where they're definitely going to use him, and that offense is ascending. They've got Bo Nix. Like, to me, that's great because now it opens up the game. Who did they have last year? Javonte Williams? I don't know about you, but I don't draft any Javonte Williams. I don't care what team he's on. And they had McCullough, or is it McCullough? That's behind him.
Yep.
No, not McCullough.
Yeah, they had McLaughlin.
That's it. McLaughlin behind him. I mean, he's all right to go in, a down here and there, but he's not necessarily a guy you're going to lean on in the running game. I think it's awesome that they brought in a rookie that has the potential to take over that role and be the guy in that offense. But they also have kind of like the same thing as the Chargers do. They have that kind of proven vet guy that can come in and put in volume and, be that workhorse, maybe especially in the beginning. Maybe they complement each other at one point, or maybe there's a situation where, knock on wood, and unfortunately maybe like an injury kind of defines that for us and decides it. But I think that guys that were buying Harvey super late, right after the rookie drafts, might not be liking it right now, right? Because his price takes a hit a bit. We saw it with Chubb and Mixon. So I think it's interesting. The whole, you got Houston, the Chargers, and Denver, where you have like this, a situation like Vegas, we all know what's most likely going to happen. Whereas these ones are a little more interesting, but that's where you make your money in these drafts, is by making the right choice. Do you draft both of them in a redraft? Do you draft both of them in a best ball? Do you draft, how do you play that, right? I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Rob, with those.
I would say, with Sean Payton, I'm not so sure he's going to ride a single back. I mean, you look at his offenses, most of the time, I mean, even when you go back to Reggie Bush and Ingram, and, or is it Reggie?
You're getting eaten up by the Wi-Fi goblins.
Yep.
Yeah, Rob, you're
frozen up a little bit.
You're freezing up there, buddy.
I was just giving the thunder and lightning. I mean, it just seems Sean Payton always kind of has that, going back to Reggie Bush.
Is that what you think?
I think Reggie Bush would be a good RJ Harvey comp.
Is that what you think happens, Dan? Kind of with a lot of these situations, is that thunder or lightning situation? Or do you think one guy just takes it?
Yeah, I think especially in Denver, that's the case. I think Najee is going to be annoyingly involved for anybody who's taken Hampton. He's, and that's one pick that's a little bit tough for me to click. And I know you guys clicked it, was the Najee Harris button, just because I feel like he's gonna kind of give you that sort of 8, 9, 10 points a lot of the time, and that worries me. But of course, if anything happens to Hampton, then you're sitting on a gold mine right there. So
Dan, Rob loves Najee Harris, like to the point where it's like that we butt heads in every draft. That's the guy I was telling you about the other day. Like it's like, I get having your guys, but like you gotta you gotta spread out your ownership, man. You know what I mean? And he just loves Najee Harris, tells him he's gonna get run into the ground until he's out, and then maybe Hampton comes in. Rob, I hope we have you because we're talking about your boy Najee Harris, like your go-to guy.
I was hearing you. I was hearing you. Look, with Najee, I'm hoping to get a first half of the season. I'd like to get 2 first quarters out of him. I expect him to get run into the ground. He's a guy who doesn't get hurt, doesn't fumble the ball. That Harbaugh's going to use him. I'm not sure. I mean, I like Hampton as dynasty player. I love Hampton. Maybe as we get into that third and fourth quarter of the season, he starts to really kind of establish himself. But I really do expect Najee to take the bulk load of this early in the year. He's the back that he can trust. He's going to demonstrate to Hampton what a starting running back is. And I think that's just how Harbaugh runs a team. So,
yeah, and just to address a comment that's in the chat, somebody was asking if the Mooney pick was about 2 rounds early. I don't know if I'd say it's 2 rounds early, but I would say that I would rather have some, because I do think Mooney is going to be kind of the number 2 target in Atlanta. So I certainly don't think he's a bad pick. But at that point, I'd like to be reaching for a little bit more upside, maybe I would slot him in after Golden. I would probably slot him in after Igbuka. It's not like a lot of wide receivers went off after him. I'd have no problem taking him over Kupp, though. So I don't think it was egregiously early. I mean, there were a couple of guys I might rather have had, but, that's kind of personal, just personal preference, I guess, is the main thing. I love the value you guys got on Knicks there. I think that was a great pick. Really like that. I think he's got a really, really solid floor. He's got a rock solid floor, and I think he's got potentially even some ceiling that's yet to be unlocked. So love that pick.
Yeah, that's one of those spots where we had a lot of discussion just because we were kind of hoping Justin Fields and Bo Nix could kind of be I think we had even talked maybe double tapping there. And then Fields went off the board at 10. And I was just like, I remember that day just reading about James Cook, like maybe not, like not talking at all to the franchise or to the Bills. And he's like, his house is for sale. Like you're hearing all this stuff, like he hasn't been near, camp and all this stuff. And I was just looking at Rob going, well, Ray Davis had a pretty monster game last year. Like I just remember, if you're a running back in that offense, I mean, let's face it, the receivers are mostly scrubs. I mean, yeah, some guys are flashing right now, and Elijah Moore, and you've got Shakir with the new contract. But at the end of the day, man, whoever's in that backfield is going to get you points. We even saw that Ty Johnson guy when he had the opportunity to give you some points, kind of towards the end of the year, maybe even in the playoffs last year. But I just think Ray Davis was kind of coming up. Garendo was the guy we really wanted if we weren't taking a quarterback there, just because I take Garendo everywhere. He's like my go-to. I just can't get enough of him. But Ray Davis there, it was just one of those where it was like, you know what? Like even if let's say this drags with James Cook, even if it's not necessarily like he's not with the Bills anymore or he doesn't sign or any of that stuff, like you got to think that he's going to come back. And the closer we get to the season, the harder it is for him to be like in game shape, kind of ready to go season, mid-season shape. So I feel like this always, this often falls into the favor of the next guy in line. And Ray Davis showed us nice flashes as a rookie.
Right. Yeah, and then you guys got a really nice tight end to start with for having waited as long as you did. I think, Freiermuth did go off the board. I was going to say if Freiermuth hadn't gone off the board, I'd have taken him, but he did. So yeah, Hunter Henry definitely looks like the best available, and I think he's still going to be really solid because that the New England wide receiver room it's still a mess until proven otherwise is kind of the way I look at it. And, I don't know how you can take a Diggs that's, coming off of injury and then a Kyle Williams who's, he's still a rookie there's just not a lot of certainty there. And things certainly, they could work out great. And, but still, Hunter Henry as the tight end, he's going to have a big role in that offense, even if the receiver room does end up working itself out. So really like that pick there a lot. Also like the pick that went right after that, Rashid Shaheed. You guys didn't need him, but I think that's a really nice pick that late in the draft.
Rob, anything to add with New England? I know we both like Hunter Henry, so it's kind of easy when we get late and we miss on, a lot of these earlier guys. Sean is asking with regards to the receiving core. Peanut Punch, I do see you in your question. Appreciate you, brother. I'll get your question in a minute once we get this one out of the way. But what are your thoughts on New England receiving game there?
Real quick, I think that, exactly what Dan says, it's a mess, but looking with Vegas, New England's going to be favored in 11 of 17 games. I mean, their matchups, their first 4 games coming out of the gate are going to be pretty good matchups for the team. I'm not sure who comes out of this, but there's going to be some points on the offense. I mean, that's a team that I definitely wanted a little bit of. I like the idea that we got Hunter Henry. I do think that things will kind of center around him. Same thing with Denver. I like their start of the season in Buffalo, start of the season. All those teams, really do get good starts to start out, and that's what I really wanted for our team. Was that good start out of the gate.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you guys came back with Brenton Strange. So you've got basically 2 guys that should give you a nice base of points for your tight end position. I don't know what you did. I'm hopeful that there will be a shot at some upside at tight end later. Like one of the rookies, Ferguson or somebody like that would round out that tight end room really, really nicely. But the way you've got things put together right now, hitting wide receiver and running back exclusively for the first 10 rounds of the draft, it makes you feel really good about those things. And then, as JD was saying, there's still good tight ends available late. You got Bo Nix, fairly late in the draft as well. So I think you're sitting really, really well with where this team is. And teams like Team 10, don't know who he is, but those rainbow starts always worry me a little bit because sometimes it feels like it's difficult to piece the whole team together when you have one of those. I just did one in a guerrilla draft, and I'm only on the we've just made it through 8 rounds or whatever, and already I'm kind of regretting it. I'm just like, yeah, I should have passed on Jaden Daniels. I shouldn't have taken a quarterback later because I already had a tight end, wide receiver, and a running back, and taking Daniels in the 4th just kind of made it a little bit messy for me.
It's funny how when you start playing fantasy football, when you're like a young lad and you just, that's kind of like your go-to, your first draft, you're like, yeah, I'm going to get my quarterback, I'm going to get my receiver, I'm going to get my running back, and then I'll go from there. Whereas now it's like, if I start, I'm like you, Dan, like I like to know what direction my team is going, like, you know what I mean, as early as possible. So the quicker I know that, the quicker I can kind of map out and kind of start looking for value in certain spots. And that's, I feel like I totally get what you're saying. Like in one sense, it's like, hey, you've got one of each position, so you're not necessarily desperate, but at the same time, it's like, hey, what's your strength? Like what are you leaning into position wise here? Let's go to Peanut Punch really quick. He's got a question about Arizona and Kyler. I know Harrison, maybe people don't necessarily feel, obviously with guys like Neighbors and, giving the year that they had. So then you look at Harrison and he was going in most drafts ahead of Neighbors, if I'm not mistaken. Was it? He was going ahead.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. So maybe they're like, have kind of that bad taste in their mouth. Do you see a bounce back from Harrison? We talked about Trey McBride earlier. Obviously he's going to do what he does, but does Kyler's kind of performance is what's going to, kind of make or break some of these guys? Or do you think that Kyler's given us enough to have another fantasy, like really relevant guy other than McBride in Arizona? I mean, even James Conner, right? He keeps defying age.
Right, exactly. And you know, we're going to let Rob comment last because he knows a lot more about Arizona than anybody else. So I'll go ahead and stick my foot in my mouth before he says anything. But I do like the Arizona offense just because I think it's really easy. You know, it's a tight target tree. You know, you're looking at or a tight usage tree. You're looking at basically you know, Kyler, Connor, Harrison, and McBride, and those are the four main components of your offense. Others are going to chip in, but I think a lot of the offense is going to run through those guys. I think they are going to be a reasonably good offense, and you know, if it's got a a really tight usage pattern like that, I don't mind if it's not the greatest offense in the world because I know my guys are getting theirs.
Rob, anything to add on
now
Arizona?
Let's see what Rob has to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Arizona, I kind of pay a little more attention to what they did on the defense. And I think that defense is just so much improved that I've just got to assume that they're going to run a little bit more time. I mean, they're setting up to me to be more of a running team. So I expect more to go through Harrison, but I just expect a different type of offense than they were running. So, with the defense being stronger, I expect a little more ball control.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That probably plays into McBride's hand a little bit as well. But yeah, I mean, they're still going to have a downfield element to that offense that they're going to have to use early on, I would think.
So Dan, are you disappointed with the Gesicki as the trio? You talked about rookie upside. So here, let me give you a caveat. My brain went where your brain went. But the man at the bottom, like the guy right under you, he does not like rookie tight ends. He's not a rookie tight end kind of guy. He's kind of like you and I were like 5-6 years ago, I guess. It's saying like rookie tight ends are never, like. So what do you think
never.
About? No, but let's face it. In Dynasty, I mean, we're tight end preems, whatever. That's one thing. But in these bigger drafts, you have been a no rookie tight end guy. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Now, the one thing I don't hate about Gesicki, normally he's not a guy I'm ever drafting, but when you have Higgins and you got Gesicki, this is basically the off-speed pitch to the fastball there because you know what? If you lose your fastball, you're going to go to the off-speed stuff, and that's exactly what Cincinnati does. Anytime that T. Higgins is out, all of a sudden Gesicki is front and center. So it's kind of a good contingent play there. Anything I hated about the Gesicki pick, you just made up for with your 15th round pick, JJ McCarthy, a guy near and dear to my heart. I might be a homer here, but you know what? I think McCarthy for Sam Darnold. I think he's a much better talent than Sam Darnold. He might take a couple 3-4 weeks to really get into the flow of it and everything, but I expect that guy to be absolutely humming come in the playoffs. And when you've got Kevin O'Connell for your head coach, the man is a quarterback whisperer. I would run into a burning building for him. So this is a pick I love. I think it's going to work out really well. You got Jefferson, so you got the stack. I mean, everything is great about that pick. So very, very nicely done. I don't know what team 5 is thinking, taking 3 defenses in a main.
We were
between the 13th and 16th round. It's like your first 10 picks matter a lot more, but that is sort of lighting money on fire.
Dan, we love hearing your excitement with JJ McCarthy because that was in our back pocket from the time we took Justin Jefferson. We're like, we got to get the JJs and the JJs together. You know what I mean? Like, especially
Absolutely.
like you can at his price, and if you already have Jefferson, we talked about Addison maybe missing time. I mean, that connection is just going to be, I mean, we hope, but it's got a lot of upside. And because we missed on Fields, it was like we knew we were going JJ with Bo Nix. Gesicki, that's exactly kind of why I was like, you know what, if you don't want a rookie tight end, let's at least take Gesicki here because I feel like we had Higgins and that kind of gives us a bit of a stack there. And as a third tight end with the other two that we have, I feel like with those three, we can really kind of play the matchups and be able to fill a lineup. Do you have anything to add, Rob, with the JJM? I know you were excited as well to get him.
I was thrilled. I'm just happy as can be listening to Dan talk about our tight ends. I could just sit here and listen to that all day.
Totally. So we go.
No, I think you're just fine at tight end there.
Yeah, and that was the idea. Like, if you're not gonna give me like a couple of rookie tight ends or to play with, then let's at least get a guy that we could throw in any week and expect something. Because like you said, Dan, that narrow target tree out there in Cincinnati, and let's face it, they're gonna be chucking the ball. Pat Bryant's a guy that I think all three of us liked when we were doing the rookie drafts. I know because I've done rookie drafts with both of you. And like, it was just one of those where the more we were getting excited about him, unfortunately, the more he was kind of, ascending, I guess, or climbing the ADP in rookie drafts. But the nice thing, or in drafts, just period, even especially best balls, right? Because we're looking for these guys late. But it's funny, when we first started talking about him, Dan and Rob, he was going what, third or fourth round? I think even later. No, like he was going around the third or fourth round. Dan, was it for like rookie
fourth
drafts?
Fourth
yeah,
round.
he was like nobody
Easy
was talking
round.
about him.
Fourth round.
And then it's just like, does anyone know this guy
Yep.
got drafted where he did, and that he's going to a Sean Payton offense where he's calling this guy like the next. What did he call
Michael
him?
Thomas.
Michael Thomas. That's it. So, I know you guys are excited about him. Maybe while we have Rob, before the aliens come in and eat up his Wi-Fi, give us your thoughts on Pat, and then Dan can. I'll be right back, boys. You guys go ahead.
Have you guys? I don't know if you guys have seen Sean Payton's clips lately talking about Pat Bryant, but he has got a big grin, and you just know people are asking about him, and he's just saying, well, "I'm happy with what I see, aren't you? Just like you're happy with what you see." He came in saying this guy was going to be Michael Thomas. Now he's in minis saying that he's happy with everything he's seeing. I mean, I just see this guy, steaming up as we get closer to the season, especially once people see him in preseason.
Yeah, good chance that happens if he continues to perform well. I mean, the one thing we know is that Sean Payton likes bigger wide receivers, so this guy definitely qualifies. There's not really much in the way of roadblocks standing in his way. You've got Sutton and you've got Ingram, and everything else is really kind of up in the air with that offense. So, like the pick, of course, you're stacking them with Knicks too, which is always a really nice way to go. But so far, I think things have come together pretty well for your team. You went ahead and got a defense. San Francisco, it'll be interesting to see how their defense does. I don't know. I'm not a fan yet of the 49er defense, but you got Salah back there, so we've seen that guy do some pretty impressive things as a coordinator. So don't really hate the pick. I don't remember who do they have in the first week? Do you remember?
That was a schedule pick. Rob was really selling me on the schedule when it came to the San Fran defense.
But not for San Francisco. They're not on my list. I've got a short list, but I can tell you, I'm not sure who San Francisco plays first week.
Here, I can tell you right now. I think we looked at it after, and I can't remember if we were happy or disappointed, Rob. Let's see.
I think we were fine with who we started out. I like that there's a lot of people coming back from injury on San Francisco. They're perennially one of the top defenses. And
Seahawks.
last year they were
at
off.
Seahawks.
That's not bad.
One.
Yeah, you're talking about a team with still plenty of question marks in the offensive line, a quarterback who really needs a good offensive line to be at his best. So. When you're playing against Seattle, if you can generate a good pass rush, then I think you've got a chance to score some points there.
Gets pretty good at week 2, Dan. Guess where they go week 2? They go to New Orleans.
Oh yeah, nice.
And then they're at home. They're at home against Arizona, who we just talked about in week 3. So Jaguars at home against Jaguars in week 4. So I mean, not the worst schedule. At the Rams in week 5 probably gets a little dicey there, but.
Plus, things will open up those first couple of weeks of the season. You're going to see, teams will pop. There'll be a defense out there somewhere that people missed. There's going to be like a quarterback that's going to be popping that people missed. There's going to be players that you can pick up. And so, I mean, San Francisco's fine to start out with. They'll have, they'll put up enough. And Butker is a kicker.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll be fine too.
Yeah, I got no problems with that. Especially early on, I think the Kansas City offense might take a couple 3 weeks to kind of gel as they work everybody back in. And Andy Reid is not afraid to take field goals with. He's got a quality defense there, so that's been working out for him.
Yeah, the bye week is nice too with Butker. That week 10 bye was very attractive compared to the other choices. Was I don't know, but I just find like it's hard for me to take a week. I know you can go on waivers but it just feels nice when you have, like last year it was who was that kicker I really liked, Rob, the Houston guy, Fairbairn. Yeah, like he had I think a week 14 bye or something, and it was like, oh yeah, I'm taking this guy everywhere. He's in a dome.
Yeah, love those late buys on kickers and defense. That is really nice when you can make that work. And as Jim,
the free look
in the chat pointed out, free look with
Curious.
Butker for sure.
Yeah, curious what you think about Team 5 and the 3 defense approach.
That's gross. That's essentially throwing money away. I know the last 8 rounds or whatever don't matter as much as or last 7 rounds. I guess it's 8 rounds. Don't matter as much as the first 12, but I can't do that. I don't see the value in it. I mean, he's trying to do is he's trying to make sure between these 3 picks I want to land an elite defense. But you know what? If you're going to spend that much on Denver, then you just need to ride that. If you're gonna pull I'm going to take 3 defenses, then do it rounds 18, 19, and 20. Don't be doing it in 13, 14, and 16. That just makes no sense whatsoever. Because the problem is you're going to have, if 2 of these defenses are really good, you're going to be shorthanded somewhere else. When bye weeks come along, you're going to be struggling, and you're going to be wanting to hang on to that defense. Maybe all 3 of them are good, and then you're trying to hang on to 2 defenses, and it just ends up killing you in so many other ways. So I hate the strategy.
Well, you also went 5 running backs, and I don't know. You took Barkley and Taylor, so you're definitely leaning on them, right? Obviously for the season, But then you've only got really Jordan Mason as a fill-in. You have no idea what Woody Marks and Jordan James. I love both those guys. Don't get me wrong, as flyers, as like maybe my running back, 5, 6, 7. But I just feel like instead of Philly there, especially you went early. Like that's kind of the thing, right? Like why go early defense, double tap, and then add a 3rd one? It doesn't make sense. Like I get if you just take the 2 early and think you're, one of these, you play matchups or whatever, but to take Philly there when you could have added like an Estime or a Miles Sanders or even a Justice Hill, I think would have served you better on that build with regards to the 3 defenses there. But, who knows?
Yep. Yeah, and then also taking Purdy when you've got Josh Allen just doesn't make any sense to me either. I mean, if I've got Josh Allen, I'm not taking a second quarterback, not when I've got waivers available to me. There's no way. I would rather use that pick to, add to my running backs, add to my wide receivers, add to my tight ends. Do something with it. Not a 4th defense, but do something else with it.
Dan, I drafted Jalen Hurst with an AJ Brown kind of build in that big grill I did on Sunday night, and I didn't take another quarterback
No need to.
You don't need to, because especially like, you know, I mean, here it's 7th round buys, but I mean, when are you, the whole point of taking one of the elite QBs is that you're going to start them every week unless there's a bye week. So if that means the first like 6 weeks, you're not playing guys like Geno Smith, Matthew Stafford were going undrafted. They went undrafted in that draft. Like, you can get them off of waivers when you need them, especially like week 7. For sure, there's going to be guys dropping their second and third quarterback, you know, for pickups, and you're gonna have at least 3 or 4 options, you know, especially in the middle of the season. So, I think that's one mistake that drafters do is if you're gonna go early on a position, you gotta make it count. So you almost like the same thing with the defense, and then getting the quarterback early. I mean, the tight end, I feel like you did okay grabbing Laporta, Kincaid, and then like just getting that safety net later with Sanders. But even that, like, I mean, the nice thing with this one is you can play 3 tight ends, you know, with the 2 flexes and their premium. So I'm never going to hate on grabbing. I feel like you can't really have too many tight ends in this, obviously to a certain point, but they'll usually allow you to be very flexible with your starting lineups. Rob?
I would say this, that Dan's brought me over to the dark side. I used to be an early tight end drafter. I used to draft a tight end early in every draft. And then, you know, Dan taught me, you know, the wonders of the dumpster. And I'm telling you, old and crusty gets you good. And up there in the
especially
top,
at tight end,
you know,
especially at tight end.
Yeah, he was talking about the rainbow start. I don't want to draft either 2 tight ends or a tight end and a quarterback inside the first 5 rounds. I mean, if I'm going to draft one, I'm not drafting another one. I mean, and if I'm drafting a tight end or a quarterback up there, I'm not drafting another one for a long time.
Yeah.
So
again, it's kind of like you really need to have the right balance with these roster builds. Like, you know, if you're going to take a position early, you can't kind of void that by adding depth later on. You know, like it just doesn't make sense. If you want to be top heavy at a position, be top heavy at a position. But yeah, I mean, there's, you know, that we're kind of picking on team 5, I feel like, but I mean, that's 2, 3 kind of really good
I was
examples.
picking on team 10.
Or team 10 as well. Yeah, there you go. Spreading the love. That is what we do here in the Goat District. So, Dan, I know it's always tough with the, like, you know, you're just seeing this board for the first time. Obviously, we like what Hubbard did with Austin and the boys in that 4 spot. I just, you know, they're sharp. I even told you, I think, you know, as soon as he took Nick Chubb, I feel like I knew there was news coming that Nick Chubb was signing. And then literally 2 days later, I think Chubb signed with was signing with Houston. But is there a team that stands out other than kind of what we already mentioned with these builds?
Yeah, I mean, definitely 4 is you know, a strong team. There are a lot of really good teams here. Like, you know, I know we've picked on a couple teams, but it's kind of because a lot of the other teams haven't had too much to pick on. I like Team 7. I think they've put together a very nice squad. I think it's well constructed.
Yeah.
Team 7 is definitely I think a favorite of mine in this draft as well. Very well put together. I mean, and who would have thought you could get Justin Herbert, you know, 5 rounds after
so crazy.
Justin Fields.
Yeah. So crazy.
So. But that's, you know, but that's a perfect quarterback to pair with Fields too. I mean, it just fits, you know, so
and he's
nicely.
got McCarthy.
And he's got McCarthy.
Right. Everything about that team works, and that's what you want to have. Is when when you get done with it, you want to be looking at it and saying, "Hey, I've got good players and I've got good balance. The players complement each other." and Team 7 kind of checks all those boxes.
Rob, is there, Dan, you can also hate on our team. We talked about the Kamara pick. Is there anything that you don't like about our build or the way the team turned out? You can be as honest and as ugly as you like. Makes for better TV.
Well, I think I already said I wasn't a fan of the Najee pick there. I think I would have probably gone a different way.
Is there a specific? Is there a specific player
I would have
you
taken
see
ETN over.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I would have taken ETN over
100%.
over Najee, because there I feel like ETN's got a chance to hold on to the job the entire year. I do like how Austin and Hubbard went at it. They took Tootin and they came back around and they got ETN. I would have definitely loved to piss in their Cheerios and get that ETN one pick before them. But
agreed.
Yeah,
that was definitely what we were talking about. That was the discussion right there. Is that we were hoping for Tootin to come in, and then between Najee and Etienne was the talk. So
okay,
you could have swung. I could have been swung to Etienne. I do think that's close. I just like Najee because he doesn't fumble, he doesn't get hurt, and if he doesn't fumble, he doesn't get hurt. That's just Harbaugh's kind of player. He'll grind him into the ground. So.
Yeah, Etienne would have been nice there. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
The Justice Hill handcuff on Henry, it makes a lot of sense because it's late. It doesn't cost you that much. And if Henry goes down, I don't think it's going to turn into a Justice Hill backfield. I do think that Keaton Mitchell is going to have something to say about that. But I do think they are going to lean on Hill a lot, and he's probably at least the safer bet. I like that. I think that's a fair way to go. The Kyle Managi pick in the last round, that's exactly the kind of that I want to take, because you know what, these running backs in Chicago, neither one of them is really they both feel kind of overdrafted to me. We're kind of drafting them because, there's all these targets and touches and whatever, but nobody's ever really confident in Swift, though. Swift, of course. But taking Managi where you did, I think that's a great play, even if it's just because Roschon just simply isn't good enough to hang on to the job over him, and Managi turns into the change of pace from Swift.
Yeah, that's one of those little tricks. If you're doing these redrafts and you got to take a defense and a kicker, I'm not into grabbing, either of them super early. But if you're going to keep them for your last 2 rounds, I feel like you can always go the 18 and 19 and get a bit more options when you're picking up your kicker and your defense. I usually take my kicker first. I'm not going to lie, just because I feel like it's a little more predictable than defenses. But I like taking them around each early just to get that last round pick, because I feel like you're getting a similar player pool, in that second last or in that third last round as you are in the end. And especially this year, you can find those late round rookie running backs, kind of like the Manung guys. Yeah, I like taking, you're taking a huge swing. You know what I mean? It's a Steve Reich to a home run swing.
Right, exactly. So and I think it works out well to push up your kicker and defense by 1 or 2 rounds anyway, just because you get a little bit more choice with it. Yep. And as you said, the last couple rounds, basically from round 17 on, one lottery ticket is pretty close to as good as another. There are definitely players I like, but I can find players I like in the 20th round just as easily as I can find them in the 17th round. So I think it works out well to just grab your kickers and defense where it makes sense for you. You don't want to push them up way too early unless you're grabbing a really, really elite option. And if you do that, then you better have just one.
Dan, we said we were going to make these GOAT District shows shorter, and we failed.
Good luck with that.
We're gonna try to not do those like 2-3 hour shows or 2 hour shows. Of course, we're at the minute 20-24 mark here, so we apologize. We wanted to make sure we went through the draft board well, and it's one of those where, I mean, you sit down and start talking fantasy and draft boards, we could go on for hours, let's just face it. But I just want to give a quick shout out to the chat. You guys were awesome. Kyle's money came in the end there. He MP60 from Germany, Jay Wimmers. We've got Jim, Sean Green, Christopher Davis. I mean, Nick Constantino is one of the Go Bills. Stephanie Miller, shout out to her joining us. We always appreciate her support. Sean Green, Peanut Punch. I mean, you guys were awesome today. We appreciate you guys big time. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you smash the like button. That really helps us out. It's a second of your time, barely any energy. You can go, grab a cup of water, drink a beer, and you'll get refueled right there for smashing that like button. But if you're watching this later on and not necessarily live, make sure you drop a comment. That also helps us big time. Let us know picks you like, you don't like, teams you like, roster builds. If there's guys that you see are maybe getting drafted at a value or overpriced, we want to hear it, right? And we appreciate you guys tuning in today. Shout out to the FFPC for the support they give us as a channel. Dan, anything to promote, or do you have anything coming out on Stack oh man, blanking on the name, Stackers?
Yeah,
no?
Stack Hunters.
Stack Hunters, thank you. Stack Hunters.
Yeah, Stack Hunters is going to be, Bradley and I are going to be recording tomorrow night. Still working on the contents of the show, but it'll be a good one for sure. We're also working on putting together the Fantasy Empire again. That one will probably be making its debut in another week or two, but that's going to be coming as well. So I'll be on with Nelson, Chris, and Matt. So
all right, I can hear you.
That's a fun show.
Nice.
I'm back.
Rob's like the uncle at the Christmas. When you go to see your family at Christmas, he's like the uncle that comes in with like he's had a couple beers. He's like he's like, hey guys, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, guys, I'm moving across the world in 2 weeks, man. Everything is all over the place. I'm doing the best I can. I just was, so honored to be asked and so just thrilled that you guys were going to be doing this again. Looking forward to watching this. And yeah, man, happy to sit here and chat fantasy anytime,
Yeah, man, we appreciate you joining us today, for sure. We appreciate you jumping on and talking shop. Dan, this is, I'm just so over the moon that we're back, and we're lining up, like, honestly, guys, we're lining up some serious guests, some of the sharpest minds in the game. If there's anyone you guys want to see, I know Rob's given us a list of demands. We've already gotten a couple of those lined up. If there's anyone you guys want to see specifically, some of your favorites, make sure you drop it in the comment. Let us know, and we'll for sure make a point of reaching out to them to see if we can get them into the schedule. But we really appreciate you guys joining us today. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Smash that like button. That always helps us out. And tune in for live drafts. Make sure you check Dan out there in the player profiler land. And Rob is on X at the Harry Snowman. I'm JD at Draft Room Baller, and we'll check you all later.
GOAT District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I'll always be traded. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.